When Obi-Wan says he has the high ground, there's a reason he says it. You know, he means business.
All right, I'm ready. Welcome to the Riot Games
Super
Art
Power
Hour. I'm Michelle. I'm a 3D artist for the maps team. That includes 3D artists, concept artists, our designers like Diego, our producers who work together to create the maps.
I'm Diego. I'm a game designer on the maps team. The subset of that is the level design team. Today, for the Super Art Power Hour, I'm going to be making a bomb site from scratch, showing you how game designers, or level designers in particular, think about how we want to approach a space and how we think a player should approach a space, and think about the different gameplay considerations that we have to keep in mind, especially when it comes to new things like map mechanics, and trying to make that clear and readable to the player.
And I'm gonna try to art his Blockout design and show the process of how design and art work together to create the best environment for gameplay. We're gonna be doing it in the theme of Abyss, the map that we both have spent a lot of time on, but with a twist, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna add a fiery twist to Abyss.
I have gone in and created like a lava pit volume that we can use to place everywhere and build the site around like, hey, what if there was lava pits on the site? What kind of gameplay can happen from that? So that's kind of like the main design problem / goal. It's like, can we incorporate these lava pits in a way that makes sense for Valorant, but also kind of makes the site feel unique because of these lava pits? With all that being said, just want to put out there that this is probably something we would never ship. And this is more so just an exercise to show our thought process and collaboration, as well as what it takes to make a bomb site. The lava could be bounce pads, it could be marshmallows, they could be jello, they could be anything else. But you know, the core principles of how we collaborate and the techniques that we use will stay the same for the most part.
Do you think we would ever actually use lava for the game?
Probably not. I think lava kind of is a little bit too gamey for Val. I think it takes up a lot of mind share. Something that actually is a good thing for people to know is that on Val, we actually see the maps as kind of like the chessboard for like the gameplay that happens. And so on a chessboard, you don't really notice it a lot of the time, except for when you really need to. And so we kind of have that similar feeling for a lot of our maps, where the map might have a bespoke mechanic such as teleporters, or you can follow the map, or there's like rotating doors. But for the most part, those map mechanics shouldn't detract from the overall gameplay of Valorant. We want those to be kind of in the background that might come to the foreground in very key moments that we plan for. But other than that, you're playing a attack shooter. You know, we want the focus to be on the gameplay.
Even though we wouldn't actually ever put lava in our map, it's a good practice to see like how quickly we can get a visual representation of what it would look like, to test it out, see how it feels, figure out like how to make the art serve gameplay, make sure we are prioritizing readability for when you're playing on this site, and especially like on a bomb site, you know, that is where you're having the most like intense high level gameplay, and we want to make sure that it serves the player well. Lava is bright red and it's on fire, which is really fast. So red is normally a color we try to avoid, and then fast movement is also something we want to avoid to not distract the player. So getting that to work will be difficult.
One of the more challenging things that we'll encounter on the design side is how do we make lava pits work in Val? You know, since this is something that we would traditionally never ship, it'll be a little bit of a challenge to see how we can make lava pits feel correct and like make sense, especially since usually it takes months of iteration to even get a hook lock down, and we're distilling that into 1 hour. It'll be a little challenging, but it should be fun. There's always that want and, you know, need from artists that like, hey, we want the art to look great, but you know, sometimes looking great isn't always great for gameplay. And so we want to always bridge that gap where the art looks great and it plays great for gameplay. And you know, that's something that always just happens, you know, as we're trying to figure out what the art style is going to look like. Luckily though, Abyss is a map that's released, and so we have somewhat of a good starting point to go from there. But you know, as Michelle mentioned with the lava, things could get a little dicey, and so we want to make sure we're on top of that.
Creating a bomb site and doing art for it in an hour is crazy, but full disclosure, we're gonna take a little bit longer than an hour and hopefully edit it down into a nice hour for you guys. How do you feel about it, Diego?
Feel excited. I think it'll be fun. I think maybe a little zany on the design side as I try to figure out what to do with lava, but I think we got it.
So we'll see what we can do today.
It'll be easy because we're super artists. Except for me, I'm an artist for the day, I guess.
You're a super designer.
Super designer. Game design is just the underlying rules, if you think about it, for a game. Game design is pretty broad. There are designers such as system designers, level designers such as myself, gameplay designers, character designers. Each designer kind of has their role in a studio. And so for a level designer such as myself, I'm tasked to create glorified puzzles, if that makes sense, for players to kind of figure out and try to beat. In Val, it's a lot of puzzle solving. The abilities in the game are kind of the puzzle pieces for the empty holes, so to speak. So trying to find a way to make a puzzle intriguing, but also not too frustrating is kind of the line that I try to toe.
Environment art is basically just creating the whole world that you see in games. It encompasses a lot of things, so it's creating props, it's creating materials, it's making all the buildings you see, making kits, doing the set dressing, lighting, everything involved in making the world in games.
I'm gonna start with attack spawn. I think usually when I work on gray boxes, I work on the spawns first and kind of like bridge the gap between the spawns and the bomb site. So I'll try to make this as simple as possible for Michelle, so that she doesn't explode with all the work.
Thank you.
Potentially.
And Diego already set up the files for us before. Well, he'll have a level with his design blockout stuff. We have a level for all the lighting, and then I'll have a separate level where I have my art stuff.
That's something we do usually on the maps team, is that we have a bunch of different sub-levels. Like right here, there's like a bunch. Usually there's way more than just 3. But it just allows us to like not step on other people's toes if we're working in the same map, for instance. So like I might be in the blockout volume sub-level and Michelle might be on like the actual art of a site sub-level. So that's just how we just try to keep things clean and don't step on each other's toes that much. But you know, working on such a big team, toe stepping occurs. And so, you know, you just hit someone up on Slack and be like, hey, like, when are you gonna be done with this area? Like, let me know when you're done and we'll try to, you know, figure out a time to like, so I can sync or get the files and do my work. But usually people are pretty chill about it, so
Yeah,
it's no big deal.
Communication is important. Being able to share all your files with everyone and check them in for people or do stuff for other people in certain levels. You have to be open to that sort of stuff.
Here, I'm gonna start bridging the attack spawn over to the B bomb site. So fun fact, if you're an attacker and you spawn into the map, B site will always be on your left, A site will always be on your right. Just a little fun fact. And if you're a defender, it's flip-flopped. So A is on your left, B is on your right. Don't know why we do that. I think it's just something that we do. I think it's actually really good when you're playing a lot of maps and you're like, where's bomb site? Where's B? You know, and it's a new map, like you're playing Corrode, where's B bomb site? If you're an attacker, just look to your left, B bomb site's that way. And of course, environment artists like Michelle will have some nice in-world pointers to help you figure out where you're going.
Yeah, sometimes they're subtle, sometimes they're really obvious, you know, like it just says A and B.
Yeah.
I think it's really fun when we can like sneak in the little cues to like A and B, like on Sunset, you know, we have a parking sign, but like all the letters except for the A are like worn out. You have a little subtle arrow to A.
A bomb site, or you know, the place where you go to plant the spike in Valorant, is kind of like the main objective for both teams. So for defenders, you know, you want to defend the bomb site, make sure attackers cannot plant on it. And then for attackers, you want to try to find your way into the bomb site and plant the spike and defend the spike until it goes off. And so very obviously, like in a lot of games, there's some type of conflict that you're supposed to overcome, and that kind of like makes it a game. I remember seeing the So You Want to Make Games series, the episode about game design. There's usually some type of conflict that you're supposed to overcome as a player. And so in Valorant, that's no different. The conflict is kind of like baked into just like as soon as you load into the game, go and plant the spike as an attacker, go defend the spike zone as the defender. And so a lot of the gameplay comes out of that conflict. It's like, how are attackers going to take the space? How are defenders going to hold it? And so that's kind of like what makes Valorant Valorant. And, you know, not just Valorant, you know, tac shooters as well, like Counter-Strike and stuff like that, also derive from that same type of gameplay loop.
But it's cool for Val because they actually like tied it into the lore of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the spike is to steal the Radiant Knight that's in the area. And we have like the Alpha and Omega Earth. So it's like on one side you're trying to protect your Radiant Knight, and on the other side you're trying to get the other Earth's Radiant Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us a lot of really cool opportunities to explore like how the forms of Radiant Knight come out in these different maps.
So right now I'm trying to figure out kind of like an attacker path to B site here. Usually on a lot of our maps, kind of like when you spawn, everything is kind of like forward facing, so you don't feel like you're ever like turning around or looping back, because that usually feels weird in the context of like a multiplayer game. You want to feel like you're always progressing. So trying to like make the players feel like they're progressing through space instead of like having to like double back or do something like that. You know, other games do that a lot, like exploration games, like Metroidvanias are probably the most obvious one, where it's like, yeah, you explore a section of the map and then, you know, you kind of reach the dead end of a certain, you know, area, and then you're like, okay, well, time to go back and explore some more. For Val and like other, you know, multiplayer games, you usually want to try to keep things pretty simple in terms of like the layout of the map, and kind of allow players to navigate a little easier, so they can like get into you know, PvP fights a lot faster and a lot simpler. I usually like to go in and actually play the level. You know, something that's great about level design, at least on Val, is that I can just kind of press play at any given moment and like kind of run around my map. So here we go. I like to play Omen because he's pretty easy to smoke with and test some chokes. So fun fact, I actually was a modes designer before becoming a level designer, so I helped ship TDM about 2 years ago now. Other than that, for level design, I have helped ship some sunset updates that happened to B-Site, as well as the B-Site updates to Ascent, where we added the metal plate to the wall.
The maps I worked on have been the bomb sites for Sunset, the mid lane for Abyss. One of the first assets I worked on when I joined Riot was the taco truck that's in the defender spawn. And then I got to see when we went to Champs that taco truck was real. And there was a DJ in there, and we got to take pictures with it and everything, so that was really fun. I'm really excited about the new map that just came out that we worked on. I got to work on it from start to finish and own one of the bomb sites. It's really exciting because we use some new art techniques to kind of upgrade the visual style of Val, but still keep the core art principles. But maybe you'll notice a little bit difference in the textures, you know, some of the techniques we're using, adding more detail and flavor to the environment.
For Corrode, I helped ship the map. That means like doing a lot of stuff on the back end, like collision and projectile collision, making sure that, you know, when players play the map, everything makes sense from a gameplay perspective, and they're not like rubbing up on some random rocks or something like that. Everything is clean and consistent for gameplay.
One neat thing about Val, which sets it apart from other attack shooters, is that we have something called spawn barriers. And what the spawn barriers do for gameplay-wise, it kind of helps set the pace of a fight very fast in the early game. Perfect, I have one here. So, you know, especially for level design on Val, we want to usually keep in mind, like, have a good idea of where we think we want the barriers to be placed. Not build the map around the barriers per se, but, you know, keep in mind that players will probably be starting here at the very start of the round, you know, and what does that look like? So, for example, like on Ascent, there's a really fast fight off when the barriers drop at the round start from like across mid. And so that fight, or just even taking that space in general, can dictate a lot of how the attackers or the defenders need to then play around mid. And so, you know, we want to make sure that players kind of feel that fast-paced fight. Sometimes, you know, there are other times where we want players to take their time and, you know, really push up and gain that space, but for the most part, you know, having a fight off of the barrier drop, you know, sometimes feels interesting. You know, if a fight happens really fast off the barrier drop on one side of the map, that can influence a lot of the other decision making that the rest of the teammates have to make on other parts of the map. There's a lot of different like cascading cause and effect that happens with Val and like level design in Val that we all kind of have to just keep in mind at all times. So for design, usually I am mostly working in Unreal. I don't do much 3D modeling in Maya or Blender. If I need to make my own mini map for a map that I'm making, I usually just use Photoshop. Get in there and hand draw the map really fast because it's, you know, there's no art, so it's all blocks.
For 3D art, there are so many different 3D modeling programs you can use. There's so many different ways to texture stuff. But most of the time, what I like to use is Maya for modeling. And then to make textures, I like using Substance Designer, but you could also use Substance Painter, use ZBrush. Some people only work in Photoshop. There's a lot of possibilities, but at the end of the day, like for us, we just need to get it into Maya, and then we get it into Unreal. You don't need to be a master at all of these programs. If you have one 3D program you really like, you could still use that program. The the principles for 3D modeling should apply to all the different options that are out there.
We actually like to keep our maps pretty simple and like flat. So, you know, in cases where we want elevation, we don't have like these giant ramps, you know, that you might see in other games. We want usually things to be, you know, pretty flat, because as you're, you know, playing the game, crosshair placement means a big deal. And so we want to make sure that we keep elevation change to like very specific spots and areas, and like try to make the ramps as short as possible, just to get the job done of like, hey, you're just going up a ramp and that's kind of it. You know, we want to make sure that players don't feel a lot of friction while playing the game, and that they can just go ahead and, you know, frag out and not worry about the, you know, the map causing them to die or something like that. Something that I would traditionally do is like kind of make this corner a little shallower and like make this place like non-playable already, but maybe something we can do, just make that a different material. Since we're using lava pits, is actually just make that a lava pit, because lava pits kind of serve a similar-ish vein of like making a place non-playable for obvious reasons, because you don't want to get caught on fire, but can add a little bit more of an interesting depth potentially, where you can actually like sit in the fire maybe for like a split second and get out. So obviously this does not look like fire, it's just a red crate texture, but you know, in the world of quick iteration and level design, you just kind of got to say something is red and it'll deal damage to you, and call it a day and let people like Michelle make it look pretty, something like that. And then maybe I'll add like a little floating brick in the lava. So if you're feeling like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, you'll want to go into the fire and take your chances. Maybe play on this cool little rock floating in the lava. Could be neat. Oh, that's a cool off angle actually. Could be neat. You're playing like someone with an escape, like a movement character. You're on the brick and you kill someone and you jump across the lava and get across to safety. Since this is our main objective, right, and we want defenders to kind of play on this objective, let's give them some nice, decent cover to hide behind and really force the attackers to kind of use their problem-solving skills and figure out a way to, like a little moat for the lava to sit in. Could be neat. You cross maybe a little bridge here. Something that a lot of level designers like to do, or at least I like to do, is just stay on grid as much as possible. When you're trying to get like broad ideas down, getting off the grid can make iterations a little tougher because things don't snap. I think once you get the general gist of what you want down, you can then start adding some smaller details like I'm doing here with the railings, just so players can understand like, hey, like you probably shouldn't be here. You should probably watch where you're going. The
grid stuff helps a lot for the art side too, because you know we also have a grid in Maya. So we'll use a lot of grid snapping. It helps us make sure art's very, very tactical and precise, right?
Yeah, we love tactical and precise.
That's right.
Val.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's a little...
Oh, okay. It's like you're on a like dock or something, but then it's
kind of
lava.
It's all lava, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe allow people to jump up here and play on this little floating bit if they're feeling
I feel like that'll
brave.
It'll probably make more sense like artistically to have it like separated out into like an actual pit. It might visually make more sense.
Yeah, I kind of want to keep, actually I can make the pit here a little deeper.
How do you feel like you've been doing on the skill jumps on Abyss? Do you normally do pretty good?
It's been a while, but I'm usually not that bad. Like the one on B-site, I think I haven't died to that jump in a long time, so I think I'm doing well. Nice. Are you falling off B-site on Abyss?
It's usually on purpose if I do it, you know?
Yeah, it's always calculated.
It's very strategic. Sometimes it's my finisher, you know, if a round goes well. Just jump off. What were the yellow things you were adding?
Oh, so this is just like the lava itself, like the actual gameplay. So speaking of which, I think I want to go in and test the map a little bit now that we've got a decent direction going for it.
So does the wood crates, do they kind of behave the same way as the the glass crates?
Yeah, the glass radianite crates. Yeah, they're usually the same.
Nice. So I can make them fun glass
Yeah,
crates.
you can make the classic Val crate, like this guy right here.
Yeah, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, yours to default omen?
Yeah,
Nice.
because I can smoke. And see how this looks. So yeah, you got, there's a little bit of an angle here I could probably close off. So yeah, nice little isolated fight there on the backside guy. I gotta add some walls to really understand how this is gonna go. But yeah, you see the lava here. Someone could be, boop, make a little jump here, hold this cool little off angle. Could be neat. They jump off. It's starting to notice a little bit of like kind of dead space here. Maybe I can add like because I think you probably want to be smoking like that and like that to get a little bit of cover down. Yeah.
Yeah, at what point do you think about like what walls you want to be like pennable and stuff?
Deciding whether or not something is pennable is kind of like, there are gameplay implications of it where it's like, hey, if I want to like take cover behind this wall, someone can shoot me through it. And at that point then where can I then fall back to like hold it safely? It's like, well, maybe you want this wall pennable so that, you know, attackers can actually kind of fight back against, you know, defenders as they're trying to come in and retake the space. Or it's, we want like defenders to be able to like shoot attackers if they're trying to plant out in the open, you know, not from cover. Like you probably want to plant here as an attacker because it's nice and safe.
Okay, I feel like I have an idea where you're going with this.
Yeah. Is it giving lava?
It's totally giving lava. It's giving I'm scared to plant, but I'm thrilled and delighted.
Thrilled and delighted. Oh yeah.
I think it makes it more exciting. That was one of the big things that was tough for me to get used to for working on Val, was like having to consider the physical material and how it would sound and how it would pen, all that.
And there's a lot of metal on Abyss.
There is. We also actually, is that the first time we added linoleum? Do you think that kind of sounds, it's the hex tile one?
I think we have linoleum in Corrode.
Yeah?
In B Elbow, right? Like if you go to the left of that image, there's a linoleum in B Elbow.
Whoa.
Yeah, linoleum and wood is not pretty similar. So it's just like I think like it's just a lighter sounding wood, really.
I'm gonna try to gather some materials.
Yeah, go for it. If you have a thematic, you probably want to try to match that thematic to help the artist a little bit more. So for example, in The Last of Us, if like you're going through destroyed Seattle, right? Like that's the story point. You probably want some cars, you want buildings, you want high rises, maybe some shops that got, you know, destroyed during the first wave of infection and stuff like that. So there's ways to have the gray box even tell the story in a way that, you know, services the art. But for games like Valorant, where the gameplay is first and we think about the art in the later phase, it's kind of like an open box where, you know, Michelle's job is then very hard, where there could be some really weird analogous shape that I make that has never been created in real life, and Michelle has to go in and make it like a building or make it make sense architecturally. When you look at the site for the first time, you should have a general idea of like, hey, I'm supposed to smoke here, we're supposed to plant here. You know, where do I play on site after it's been planted, after the spike has been planted, are kind of the things that I, you know, try to help people understand when they're playing the map for the first time. So like when you're here, where do I go? I could hide behind this crate. I could hide, you know, I could push up a little bit more and try to get a little aggressive. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe there should be, you know, a middle ground here that lets me take cover in like this intermediary space as an attacker. But as a defender, I need to make sure, hey, does this feel weird to fight around? Like maybe it should just be one box, you know? So I think stuff like that, it's like trying to make sure things feel correct in terms of like how you play, like giving players options basically and how they want to take the site or take a space per se.
When you're just building the environment from the ground up, you have to always remember that you're trying to create a space where people have actually, you know, been in. You know, it's very rare to see a place where like this is the first time they've ever opened this area, so it's like you're the first person there. So when you play, you want to feel like you're going to a place that has already been lived in, and then people have already been there, people have already been living the story that we're trying to tell. And it's something that you have to put a lot of thought into, you know? It's like if there's trees that have leaves, like there probably would be leaves on the ground for over time when the wind blows, you know, or it's like autumn and the trees are dying. So stuff like that, where you have to kind of stop and think about things that just naturally happen. If you were working on like a really realistic game, I was working on an asset like a gun or something, I would put like fingerprints on the gun because like, oh, my hands are oily. And so it's something I've touched a lot would have fingerprints on it. So you wouldn't think about it, but it's the little details in life that you have to add by hand.
I think something that will make people look at maps a little differently is like seeing how simple they are, really. Looking past the art and the beautiful foliage and whatever else, is like, we design our maps to be pretty simple when it comes down to it. I know like on first blush, when you first play a map, it seems like a lot, it seems really complex, but if you take a look at the mini map and like how the layout is, I think you'll find that the map is maybe not as daunting as you initially thought. We keep in mind while designing a map, it's like we want to make sure that defenders and attackers have two ways to get into the site. So for attackers, it's usually like the main or the mid link. So for example, on Ascent, on A site, you have A main and you have tree. Those are your two traditional attacker entrances. And for defense, it's the same thing. So, which is why here I kind of have like two entrances, quote unquote, although it does feed into one main area. Yeah, that is something we always keep in mind is, you know, giving defenders options and not only defenders, but also attackers. Like we want to make sure everyone feels like they have a chance to do something that is not in the traditional playbook, if that makes sense.
Everything is cubes.
Everything is cubes. Look at the map. There's a lot of cubes. That Michelle tries really hard to make them not cubes.
And then if you see an angle, it's like, what is an angle but a sliced cube?
But a sliced cube, yeah. There's a lot of cubes. And I think cubes work for tack shooters. I think cubes are clean. Cubes are predictable. You know, we want predictability in our maps, you know, because we don't want you to feel like you lost because of the map. We want you to feel like you lost because you lost your gunfight.
Because you're not as good as the other guy.
You're not as good as the other person. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, really. You know, when we're designing maps, we kind of have to take that into account. It's like, how easy is the neutral space to take? Because if the neutral space is too easy to take, then it feels like the map is one-sided one way or the other. You know, if defenders can take neutral space really easily, the map feels defender-sided, because then attackers are kind of like, you know, really on their heels and trying to figure out like, we can't even get to the site. We're already trying to like bust through the main. I think I'm going to maybe leave this as it is. It's not perfect. There's a big no man's land here. Maybe I can add a crate or something. I'm not sure. You know what?
I like crates.
It's a pretty big site, but I think it'll work for the purposes of this demo. So I'm gonna send this over to Michelle.
Oh my God.
And she can take a look at what I've just thrown on her lap, basically. Also, when you're submitting stuff, always have a good CL name so people know what you just submitted in case you break the build.
But you know, mistakes happen. I think it's like a rite of passage, right? The first time you break the build.
Yeah, you're gonna do it
for
but
everyone.
As long as you are willing to help unbreak it, everyone will look the other way.
So I've decided to do B site because it was more natural looking, and you know, we don't really have the element of the vault. But I guess maybe that would have been interesting, the fire to stop you from the vault, but I've already decided to do B site. I've been kind of working on a reference board. It's always helpful to have references, so I've been taking pictures of B site, a lot of like big bold geometric shapes, like the overhangs, some mixed materials, but just these really like crazy geometric shapes. I have kind of like an overlook of the map just so I remember just how everything is supposed to work together. And then we're gonna do lava. So I have some pictures of lava.
Nice.
When I'm trying to create a representation of something in a map, I'm looking at references and I'm picking out the key features of it that I'm trying to replicate. So for lava, it's obviously the color, that oozy texture that we associate with lava. There's smoke coming out of it to show that it's hot, embers, and it's like glowing. So we'll see how we can work that in. I'm going to be using in Sunset, in the defender spawn, we have that really cool pit with the introverse radianite goo, and we're going to steal that and try to make it work. I'm trying to get the main impression of the scene as fast as possible. A mistake a lot of like beginner artists make is that they're making a scene and they get really excited about like a prop, like a car, and they'd be like spend a lot of times just like perfecting the wheels on the car. But you have to consider the whole picture before you can focus on any detail, because the composition and the overall read is the most important part. And that's true with like all art, really. Always go big to small. I feel like nature, lava's in nature maybe. I don't want to think about what's in the vaults for this, you know? V-site is like, we're going for the radionite like research facility. So maybe they're researching effects of lava or something, you know?
Maybe there's another research facility that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that one's like in a volcano. So that's why
Yeah.
it's giving James Bond villain.
Yeah, but also a scientist.
But also scientist.
Really nice scientist. So I guess you'd have to be pretty out there to research that kind of stuff. As the designer of this, is there anything you really want to see for the art?
I think, thinking about how we usually tackle like map mechanics, probably want to see how the lava looks so that we can figure out if it's working or not for gameplay. Because that's like the big unknown, right? For this part of the map, it's like, how do we make the lava potentially even gameplay friendly? Like, is that something that can work?
This is spawn?
That's attacker spawn,
This is attack spawn. And then this is, okay, the site is over here. Mm-hmm. Would it matter if the bridge was like thin? Because you wouldn't be under there, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to put utility down there, I think. It would probably, if you try to throw like a KJ molly underneath the bridge, it would probably just break because it's lava. Okay. That's another thing that's interesting, like about lava too, where it's like playable, but not really. You could maybe have something there for a split second before it breaks.
Are you thinking it'll damage? It will damage you it could kill you, or it will still like bring you down?
No, it'll kill you.
Okay.
It'll kill you.
Because it would, right?
Yeah, it would kill you. I don't know if...
Okay, shapes like this kill me, but we'll make it work. Looking at this, the first thing I want to think about is the overall composition. So this seems like a big focal point. So can we make this taller? Like,
yeah, we can make it taller.
Because, right? It's like the most important stuff are the heights when it's just like kind of round player, double player. But if we make it higher, it shouldn't be too big a difference. So let's make that taller so it could really stand out. It could be like really, really tall. Okay, so this has to be either concrete or metal.
So it has to be non-penable. So it could be concrete or metal, whatever you prefer.
Okay, so concrete or metal, these can be...
I'd say this back wall could be like wood, because you're not gonna shoot anyone behind that wall. So you could do whatever you want with that one. Yeah,
so when we don't have to consider about like, if you could go behind it, we have more freedom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have a little bridge, I have the lava, and then this is the site. So you think the site would be metal?
Yeah.
And then everything else would be concrete?
Whatever you think, it could be concrete, I think it would have to be one material though, probably.
Like the whole thing, or like this?
Like that, yeah, like this and that probably, like everything there would probably have to be just one material.
Okay, but these white parts?
That's the site.
So to prep for this, because this sort of thing is something that we would take a long time, I have a little asset zoo here, which is like a collection of everything I want to use for this map. So I was prepping. So I have all these little material cubes that have the different materials. And if you see the material, you see that they are in a certain saturation and value range, because we have a really controlled palette for the environment, because we really want to control, like when you're looking at it, that the environment, it sits well. You want to be able to see all the player stuff first, and the environment should not be distracting from a character coming out. If you're a defender, where would you hide on site?
I think you would probably hide behind this pillar somewhere. Okay. You'd probably also be like back here holding with like an op maybe.
Okay. I'm thinking about like the opportunities I can take to like put in the subtle indicators for the head height to just help guide the player. But we have a crate here, so that already does a pretty good job of just showing the player height. So we probably don't need something for that back wall. I really, really love this design that we had on Abyss. It was really like, I just love modeling and trimming, so it was like really fun for me to like model out like all these lines and stuff. But it was also like a really easy way to add in this head height indicator. Like we're always checking, and then like when we have the pattern where it flows downward, it helps you guide your eye into a direction you want. You know, it's like, okay, I want to be you to really point to where the defenders may come from, you know? So stuff like that I really enjoy. Okay, so the plan is I'm working on the composition. I have a kit, so I'll try to add in the details really quickly, and then we're gonna see how it all feels and then add in some set dressing. And also for that second part, we're gonna add in the lava.
Cool. I guess I'll let you do that then.
We were testing out the lighting. Lighting bake is okay, so I feel pretty good about moving forward. Lighting for Val is interesting. We use baked lighting, so everything is static. The sun doesn't move or anything. I think there's the performance element, but also like it helps us really fine tune the shadows, because that is also a big part of like gameplay readability. But we have lighting artists. As an environment artist, you should be able to do some lighting, but it's not a specialty of mine. So after I had the design blockout that was approved by Diego, I export all of his super grid blocks and I put it into Maya, and then I have it pasted here in the actual world space. And I have the blockout, which I use to snap to exactly. So that's why it's helpful. Like, I have my grid set up where, you know, every square is a meter or something like that. And I'm always just making sure that everything is snapped to match the blockout as much as I can. And so I usually will hide it, and I just kind of pick the pieces I want. I'm gonna really quickly use a kit I already made to kind of just like add in the building shelves, and then I'll walk through how I'd make a shell with the floor, and then we're gonna start seeing how that looks. A lot of environment artists, especially for like big games and open world games, they create modular kits, which are super, super useful, really fun to work with. You have like a little small kit that you're making a whole world with, and you use the grid like how Diego was mentioning, and you have it set up so that it will snap and things won't have seams or anything. But for a game like Val, you know, we have all these crazy kind of layouts that Diego designs, and it does not lead itself to modularity very well at all. So all the meshes, which we'll call shells, are pretty much unique for where they are in the level, which is cool because, you know, you can really craft whatever you want, and we're not really creating like huge spaces, so we can put that time into like crafting every wall. But it is a little different than working on other games. I made this floor mesh exactly how I want it, and then I'm separating out where I want where the bombsite is, and we always like to highlight those in the texture, so I'm gonna put a little trim around it so then we can really, really emphasize it. And then I'm gonna UV the rest of it, which is basically just like how the textures appear on the mesh. It's kind of like people always give that example of like the bunny foil wrapper on the chocolate.
If you were to unwrap the wrapper of the chocolate bunny and you play it flat, it looks really weird and distorted, but once you rewrap it on the chocolate bunny, it looks normal. But when you flatten it onto a square, that's what like a UV is, if that makes sense. And then when you rewrap it, it goes back to normal. My favorite part of working on the map as a designer is just seeing the art come in, seeing how it like starts to become a character on its own almost, or like starts to get its identity and stuff like that. I think like as a designer, you never like really have an idea of what the map will be. And so once that starts to come to life, things really start like hitting you, or it's like, oh man, this thing is real. Like it's not just an idea in my head anymore.
You get to create a whole place for people to experience. You know, I do a drawing, like what am I gonna do with that? Yeah. Well, hey, they get to see it be brought to life by someone else.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do all the tedious stuff maybe.
Yeah.
But I just love how, like, you know, you make an environment and you can play in it, you can experience it, like it becomes real. And I get to work with Diego, live the dream, make these maps, see people play on it. To me, like the highlight of my career was when we went to Champs when it was in LA, and just seeing like the cinematic reveal trailer for Sunset and seeing just how hyped people got. I was like, oh my God, the work we do is real. It's super important to work cleanly, you know? This is kind of hard because I'm not fully gonna UV all of this, but you know, I work in quad so that, you know, when I want to go back and add stuff, like I can really easily do stuff like this. My UVs, I like to have them organized, stuff like this. It's a nice little line, just so that if someone else is picking up on it, they know what they're looking at. Because often for 3D environment art, you're working together, you're always passing work back and forth, and it's just being considerate to your teammates so that they have a clean base to work on and just make things better and better as you go. That's something I really enjoy, is that I'll work on something and then I'm like, I think I'll take a break, let another artist have a crack at it and see what they come up with, and it's always better. You can get pretty burnt out from looking at one thing for a long time. I think if you're trying to get into doing game art, I think the most important, the best thing you can do is just make game art. I get people ask me for advice, and I say just make something. If you really love Val, make fan art. You can either, if you're just starting out, you can recreate something that you really like a prop or a texture, or if you're more experienced, you can make something like, I don't know, like a chair or like a lamp in the art style of Val. Showing that you appreciate an art style and then you can work in it is I think really valuable. It's a huge plus when you're looking at portfolios. That's the other thing. The portfolio is everything for an artist. You want to build that with stuff that you're passionate about, and also show that you have the drive. One of the most valuable things you look for in a junior is the passion and the just that energy to get into the industry for the game, to make art. It really helps in a team to keep everyone hyped. So be energetic, be passionate about what you're doing, and just keep making art. Show that you're passionate about whatever it is, stylized art, realistic stuff, environment art, characters, props. Just keep making them, put on your portfolio. Eventually, you'll pick out which ones are, your strongest pieces, and just really try to highlight, celebrate those. Do breakdowns on how you made them, your inspirations, just showing the thought that you put into it.
If you're just sitting there idly and not doing anything, I think that's probably your worst enemy. As a game designer, if you want to be a game designer, you definitely gotta make games. There's a lot of ways to learn game design, and I think one way is just playing games, trying to understand why the designers might have made these decisions. I think for level design, it's pay attention to how you're moving through a level. If you're not getting lost and you're moving through the level just fine, that means the level designer probably did a really good job. The good thing about, I guess, game design is that you don't necessarily need a lot of fancy software. Of course, Unity and Unreal are kind of the big ones that you need to learn if you want to do game development, for video games.
Okay, so I got my shells in. I'm putting the textures in. It's going all right, actually. I think we're cooking.
Oh.
Right? It's thanks to Sabrina's
Sabrina.
Sabrina's
Shout out
tower.
Sabrina.
Yeah, she did such a great job with the original asset. Okay. Oh my God! Whoa, it's so bright. Wow. All right. Do you think this would be okay, Diego?
For actual, if we were to ship this, probably not. But for
can
this,
I ship that?
For this, it'll be good.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
Interesting.
Huh.
Would it be easier if you brought it up?
Yeah, but we want it to be. I mean, you set it that depth for a reason, right?
Yeah, I think we can wiggle it around though. I think if you'll bring it up a smidge.
Yeah, it's okay. I can adjust this. This is very off the cuff. Okay, is it this?
Yeah, you could make it a little bit more orange for the purposes of the demo. It looks cooler.
Why do we hate the color red so much?
So, for example, the default outline color for Valorant is red. So we want to make sure that any players don't need to go digging through their settings to make sure that they can play the game, at least at a decent clarity level for the visuals. And red is kind of a common language used for a lot of our abilities as well, to let you know that you can shoot them or if it's dangerous to you. And so we don't want the environment to clash with small pieces of utility like that. So we usually want to just keep things neutral, But Corrode, a lot of the stuff on Corrode is trying to figure out, can we make this color work? Because it is a little bit orangish, reddish. And so you can see actually like the gradient of the brick goes from like a more neutral like beige to like a brighter, more saturated like orange-ish. The higher you go up so that you can, you know, have a clean read for enemies on the ground floor.
So we can move on to the next step, which is adding in our kind of secondary and tertiary detail, you know, the set dressing part. So this is where I go back to my little zoo over here.
Oh, the little plants, the potted plants.
Yeah, so my zoo, and I have all the props that I can use. We have these little decals that we can place on the walls to add some grunge, add some little hand-painted feel. I'm thinking it would be cool, since it's like lava, if we have like kind of more of a darker blend where it's the lava is to kind of like really seat that into the scene, and then when it's flat I want to have some grass on there, but I can't do too much because grass and dirt is like a separate sound call out, right? So I can only do enough grass just to add in some visual variety, but not actually make it read as if I'm walking on this it would sound like grass. And
I mean,
is slowing down my mind.
I mean, honestly, like looking more at the blockout now, I think we could probably make this back area a different sound call out actually, if it helps you more.
Oh my God, the bake. And you know, when I update them, I'm going to bake it again.
Wow, a lot of baking.
Let's apply a different material ID onto this. I'll just use the Lambert.
Oh, the Lambert.
Yeah, don't worry, don't look at my material library. And then, so I'm using Vertex painting, which is like the colors that are controlled by the verts on the actual mesh. This is why you want to work cleanly, so that I can do stuff like this. If it was all triangulated, I'd have to like manually cut in these things, and it would be a lot of work. As a designer, you know how to do some 3D modeling, right? You got to make the levels somehow.
I do know that in other studios, they actually, the level designers use Maya.
Greatest 3D modeling program.
Yeah, they use like 3D modeling softwares to make the blockouts. But on Val, I think due to like how gameplay heavy it is, I think it's easier to just make it in Unreal and then play it. Like being able to just press play at a moment's notice and test an angle goes a really long way in making sure that, oh wow, that looks really good.
Yeah, right?
To making sure that like, you know, it plays correctly. But I did take some modeling classes. I know the vernacular. I know what a vert is.
Nice,
so if someone said, "Hey, move this
go.
vert this way," it's like I could do that. I can move a vert, but
Put me in code.
but in terms of like UVing, you can catch me later. I'm not gonna do that.
I love UVing. I don't know if that's weird. You know, a lot of like people like environment artists, they love like sculpting and making trims. Like I just really love just modeling to like amazing trim sheets. The meshes are these things, all the things that we're making that make up the scene.
The 3D models.
The 3D, yes, the 3D modeling. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're meshes, but we also call them shells. I say my name is Michelle and I work on shells. It makes me laugh. Yeah. Okay. So we have the shells, and we have everything stitched, which means like all the topology, which is how we call like how you have like all the verts and your cuts and everything on the 3D model. You want it to be really, really clean because the way that the bullet penetration works in Val is actually dependent on having these really, really clean meshes. I have this face, and then when I map it, it shows up here, and I have this little window where I control basically how this texture is showing up onto the mesh. And you can do a lot of crazy things with it. And you can play with it so that it can make all different kinds of uses of your texture sheet. Let me give a better example. We're looking at this tower, right? And if I say, oh, you know what, like this strip is kind of boring, I can go to my texture and I can see that I have a bunch of different trims. So the trims, this is the normal map, which is it's like baked information of the direction that the surface normals are facing, so that like, even though it's a flat mesh, it looks like the light is reflecting off of it in a certain way that makes it look like it has height. So right now, it was using this strip, but I can set it to use this herringbone thing. And then if I line it up right, it'll show up here in this corner.
And then move the UV on the trim sheet to like really show. Yeah. So you
Boring detail.
Yeah.
Oh my god. There's lots of different ways you can do this. It's a whole can of worms, but it's something I'm very passionate about. It's something really fun. You know, like you could create a whole environment with like one trim sheet if you set it up right. This part is always really fun, but you can get really nitpicky with it. Right now I just have it blending to a flat color just because there's already going to be so much happening with the lava material.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, yeah. Right? Because the grass up here would probably be fine.
Yeah, the grass farther away from the lava would probably be fine.
And so like right now, like when I'm thinking about set dressing this, like, oh, okay, so I have grass, so I can add like little flowers, grass cards. It's so funny. It's like you add so much and then you just like leave like a whisper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll do something like that. Okay. Because like with the floors, it's, you know, you always have to make sure that it's readable for like when you have stuff like chambers, trap, or the
cipher trips.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Well, I think I'm gonna leave you to it then. Let that bake.
Okay, yeah. When you see it next, it should be set dress. Set dressing, you know, it's important. You know, I'm trying to cluster the detail. And what we do a lot in Val is having areas of rest and areas of detail, because I want the player space to be really readable, but have detail that will kind of guide your eye upward, but not be too distracting. Diego, you always play on low detail mode, right?
Yes, but I've been getting better about playing on high, because I remember I remember when we were making Corrode and like we didn't do the low detail stuff yet, and I was freaking out. I was like, guys, this map is so detailed, and you guys are like,
what do you mean?
You're like, what do you mean? It's like the rest of our maps. I was like, is it? And then I went from low to high. I was like, oh yeah, everything's okay.
Yeah, because we have the detail mode settings just so that, you know, the different specs of different computers can run it. But then pro players and streamers and stuff, they'll play it on low detail mode just to get rid of all the little detail that they think is, you know, distracting them from their game. It's sad to see them get rid of all the details like these kinds of decals, but you know, if that's the way you want to play, I gotta respect it, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm not so good. I'm busy looking at all the details.
I put that grass there.
Good.
Something that I'll say about maps, it's like, you know, technically a map is never done, at least on the design side. We're always listening to player feedback and taking a look at maps holistically and seeing if there's anything we can improve on them. For artists like Michelle, sometimes they will not work on the map for a long time. Just think like, oh, okay, that's it, we did it. Map's done. And then we'll come back maybe like a couple months later. It's like, you know that map you took like so long to build? By the way, we want to update it and we got to do it now type thing. And they're like, oh, right. It's a process that is like healthy for the game, you know? For artists, I think they like going back to maps that they worked on previously and get to like put a fresh coat of paint on it almost. As the character roster grows, you know, the characters team wants each character be distinct from each other. And sometimes that means that like some characters will inevitably like kind of clash with some like backgrounds that we've made previously, or, you know, backgrounds that we want to make that we can't now because, you know, we don't want things to blend in too much. And I think if we fall into that pitfall, things just feel off, if that makes sense. When you're trying to take a fight and you feel like the person's blending into the background, it just kind of like makes you go cross-eyed sometimes, and it's just like, wow, wait, I can't even like track this person. Another pitfall is like if the environment is potentially like too detailed or has too much stuff going on, the abilities will just crank that up to 11. If you're trying to find a Sovadar on like a super realistic brick wall, like that's you're gonna get so lost in there, and like your eyes will probably hurt. A lot of the time, a lot of Valorant is just staring at one angle for a really long time until the precise moment to when someone comes by and you need to shoot them. I think like a lot of our art and, you know, design is kind of built around that. It's like making sure it's clean enough to where you can just take the fight and you're not worried about like, oh, there's leaves in my face, or there's like, you know, there's like a little, I don't know, like mossy rock that I'm stepping on that's like messing up my crosshair placement. It's like, no, we want to make sure everything is flat and clean so that players can just play the game.
Yeah, you don't want to get too lost in, you know, creating the perfect piece of art. You always want to think about how is my art enhancing gameplay? How am I serving to create this really nice, you know, readable environment for the players?
In a game like Val and like a tech shooter, if you're having to like move your crosshair like everywhere, it feels like a lot. So like even these boxes here, like someone could get on top of it if they like TP like this and stuff. But like if I'm going to the site, like even this, right? It's like I'm expecting this fight, but then if someone's up here, I have to do this huge like flick. And that's something that we usually want to stray away from, like have it be intentional. Like this is clean. Like we want to make sure that you peek this, you just kind of fight people here. Again, like this is like not ideal, but it's like the adjustment is like not that much. You can isolate the angle too. So we want to make sure that things are nice and smooth on head level. And then that's why it's like it makes things like this guy a little bit interesting, because as you're clearing this, right, that deviation is enough to get you killed if you're not ready for that guy. So just like this guy being just a few pixels down means a lot in a game like Val, where it's like split-second decision making. It's like, oh, I missed my first 2 shots, but he got me, I'm dead. I guess in tac shooters for sure, like verticality is something we don't necessarily stray away from, but we want to be intentional with it. Because like once you get up here, like you can get on top of a smoke like that. I'm gonna come over and see how it's looking though.
It's okay.
You're UV. Hold up.
Oh wait, okay. You can watch me add the sticker.
Oh, the sticker.
Ooh, the sticker, and then the fun. All the fun.
Oh, what is that? Oh, it's the brick.
It's the tower. Yeah, they're huge. I'm also gonna try to add in the VFX for the lava. You can tell me what I can get away with. Mm-hmm. Because anything with movement, you know, it's tricky. So I have, where's my zoo? Okay, so I have all these VFX that I stole from
other maps.
That I stole from Haven. So let's start with the smoke, okay? How much smoke can we add? I think, okay, where is it?
Oh,
okay,
wow.
It's just a little bit. Again, these are all VFX that they made for Haven. We're stealing them for this. But you know, they're tiny little flecks. Is it okay? Okay, here's the real kicker. Can we add
the flames?
The flames, because they're so bright.
You know,
I already slowed this one down.
I actually think that you could put the flames on the pillar, actually.
Yeah?
Because the pillar at the bottom is like pretty hidden. What the?
Don't worry. I'm not as good as maneuvering Unreal as you are. Okay.
Is it tilted?
I'm tilted. All right. Like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think you probably want to lower it just a little bit.
Yeah. Like, let's see.
Just like get the idea that there might be something. Oh, I would say it even a little bit more.
Okay. So we like to have the site markers, and normally you want to do them like outside of the site. It's kind of like redundant if you're already on the site, but it still helps to reinforce it. So I'll put one here, but then also I really want to I want to put a huge one on the tower.
Yeah, put one on the tower. I think it makes sense. The tower is the main thing you see, right?
Yeah.
Coming to the site.
And this is the attacker side, right?
Yeah, so they got to know which way they're going.
It's giving we're going to be. That's what's fun about making art for games. I mean, you have to consider like making sure you're working in a smart way so that you can actually run and play it. It's very different than making stuff for, you know, movies.
Wow.
That's where we have a lot of fun with environment art. It's just like getting to throw stuff around, see what sticks.
Yeah. Fun fact, I want to be an environment artist in college. And then I learned I had to do Maya and learn how to UV.
It killed the dream?
And it killed the dream.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I see a career pivot here. I think you're gonna have there's gonna be a renaissance, the artist in you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sick.
I think we did it.
Yeah. That looks good.
This is what it would look like. B-site with lava.
An iteration of B-site.
An iteration.
Not the B-site.
A B-site.
A B-site.
A.
Record time.
Yeah,
Nice.
we did it.
Yeah.
Just in only an hour.
Just only, yeah, definitely only in an hour. For the design, I think we incorporated the lava decently well. I think if I had more time, I think I would probably want to play into like that like floating brick or like floating platform I have in the lava, because I think that's a kind of a neat feeling to have. Like you're in this pool of lava, but you're standing your ground, ready to fight anyone who comes through your zone. I think maybe incorporating more lava potentially. Who knows? I think I probably kept it a little tame. And also in terms of like, I guess the general layout of the site is probably too big for like a normal bomb site. Maybe it's fine. I think there's like a lot of dead space in the back, but I think that's something that you just figure out through iteration, like time and time again. So overall, I think I'm pretty happy with the end result, to be honest. I think it looks pretty sick.
Art-wise, this went way better than I expected. You know, we were just trying to skin it, you know, like just get something on there, just vaguely on Abyss B-site. But if I were to make this for real, I would spend a lot more time like trying to make it actually like make sense for why there's lava in the scene, you know, like maybe showing like the source, where it's coming from, maybe more like structure into the fences around it. Just anything to try to like visually explain why there's lava in there.
So just to recap, I went through the design process of trying to create a bomb site with the gameplay hook of having lava pits that you can fall into and die, and trying to build a site around that hook. It took some iteration and some time to figure out, you know, how to make it feel good to play in, just, you know, within the short amount of time I had. And then afterwards, I handed it to Michelle to let her do what she does.
Yeah, so we took Diego's Blockout, we worked with him to adjust the composition, get the material reads, we imported it into Maya, we made our shells in the style of Abyss, we imported them into the game, and then we kept playing with it until we got the read that we like. We added in the lava, and then we worked together to figure out how we could make that work with adjustments, and I think I'm happy with how it came out. Thank you for tuning into our Super Art Power Hour.
Again, don't look for this in game because it won't be there.
And play Corrode.
Play Corrode.
Power up. Oh my God.